I have some instrument pages to show you. We are going to look at a family of instruments today called the woodwind instruments. The reason why they're called woodwind instruments, speaking of instruments, my woodblock instrument seems to be going everywhere right now. It's going to fall. Okay. The reason why we call them woodwind is because they are made out of wood, or they used to be made out of wood when they were first invented. And in order to make the sound, you have to blow air into the instrument. So that's why they are called woodwind instruments. So let's take a look. This is called the clarinet. You may have seen clarinets before in bands. And the clarinet is a medium-sized instrument. It can play some high notes and it can play some low notes. It's a nice sounding instrument. We're going to hear the sound of it in a few minutes. And you blow air in the top here. It has a little reed, we call it a reed, that kind of vibrates while you play it. Now there's another instrument that looks very similar to the clarinet, but it's a little bit smaller. It has a different reed on the top. It's this one here. Can you see this instrument? This is called the oboe. Now it's still black like the clarinet was, but when you look at the top, it's very, very thin place for you to put the air into, so it's kind of hard to blow into. We call that a double reed. They put the two reeds together. It's very tiny, tiny hole for the air to go into, so it takes a lot of energy in your body to make the sound of the oboe. And the oboe can play some higher notes than the clarinet. It plays higher. Now you might recognize this one. This is the flute. And you might notice that this flute is not made out of wood. This flute is made out of metal, because our modern flutes, the flutes of today, are made out of metal and not out of wood. Although you might have an instrument called a recorder at home, which is a wooden flute. It's like a wooden flute. Yeah. Or a fife. Do you have a fife? A fife is a wooden piccolo. Yes. Remember we talked about piccolos earlier in the year? All right, let's look at one more. This is the big one. The biggest instrument I'm showing you today. In fact, if you stood up right now, this instrument is taller than you. It's a very big instrument. It's called the bassoon. Bassoon. And because it's the biggest of this group of woodwind instruments, it plays the lowest notes, the lowest sound. All right, so I have some music, and each one of these instruments is going to be featured. So let's hear what these instruments sound like now. The first one, the clarinet, is going to be all by himself. So you are going to hear only clarinet. Let's see what the clarinet sounds like. That was the sound of the clarinet. Now let's listen to the oboe. Now there are other instruments in this music. So the oboe is the one that is playing high, long notes over the top of the other instruments. Let's listen. Did you hear those high, long notes? That was the oboe. Very good. Now we're going to hear the flute. Again, you're going to hear other instruments, and the flute is the high one, playing lots of fast notes, like bum ba-da-dum, 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 but a lot higher than I just sang it. All right, so we're going to hear the flute playing some really high, fast notes. those notes were so fast, my friends. So fast. Okay. Now, let's hear the bassoon, which has a pretty funny sound. And in this music, you're actually going to also hear the tuba. Remember we talked about the tuba a few weeks ago? The bassoon is going to be the one at the beginning that plays bum, 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 and we're going to hear it play that 3 times. In between, we're hearing some other instruments, including the tuba. All right, so let's listen to the bassoon. That's a funny sound, isn't it? All right, my friends, those were the woodwind instruments.